Here's a book that does have the expertise of a scholarly source. It's called Uneven Tides: Rising Inequality in America. It's a compilation of essays edited by Sheldon Danziger and Peter Gottschalk, both of whom are scholars. It's got a really terrible cover design. Not all scholarly books have bad cover designs, but sometimes they do. Okay, so if we look at the table of contents here, you can see that the there's a huge difference between what we saw in Nickel and Dimed, right? So where that one was just introduction, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and the chapters were pretty simple. This one you can see they all have very academic sounding titles, like this one, The Trend in Inequality Among Families, Individuals, and Workers in the United States, a 25-year perspective. Okay, if we scroll down, part 1, background information, we have the introduction. This is the introduction to the whole work, the whole book. You can see right off the bat that we've got a lot of um, citations here in footnotes. And if we scroll down, we've got some charts and things like that. If we scroll down to the end of the introduction, we will find a lengthy list of references. So we start here, we have over a page, single spaced, of references for the introduction, right? And then we go down to the next chapter, the first real chapter of the book, The Trend in Inequality Among Families, Individuals, and Workers in the United States, a 25-year perspective, by Lynn A. Carrolley. So we want to know who this author is. So we look it up. I did a Google search for her, and I found this page. She works at the Rand Corporation, and she teaches at the Pardee Rand Graduate School. She's a senior economist and a professor. We look at her education. Her PhD and her MA are in economics from Yale University, which is a pretty solid background right there. And then we reach down here and we can see all of the things that she's done, the work that she's done, what her research is, all of that kind of information. So we know that Lynn A. Carrolley is an expert in her field. We know that she is a highly credentialed expert in her field, and so she's a really credible source. And we look at this and we start right off the bat um, with a footnote that includes citations. So she's referencing here articles appearing in the popular press, so popular sources that include, and she gives last names and dates, and that makes it easy when you get to her reference page to find who those people are and what their work is, and then you can look that up on your own and follow it up. So then she goes on here. She has a number of footnotes. Again here with information, with citations, with all of that, so you can follow up on the research that she's presenting here to you. And so eventually, when you get to her reference page, you would have a really easy time finding all of these sources that she's listed. So that's the primary way to tell a difference between a scholarly book and a popular book. These are on the same topic. Both are about minimum wage, but one is research driven in the sense of it's got a lot of information from a lot of different sources that are being brought together and synthesized in order to produce a document that gives information to a specific field, which is people who work in economics, economists and scholars in that field, whereas Nickel and Dimed is intended to it's narrative driven. It is intended to appeal to a broad audience, to invite people into an experience. So one gives an overarching economic overview of minimum wage, whereas the other one offers a narrative driven personal experience with minimum wage. And both have a lot of value, but the scholarly source is always going to be the more credible one because of the rigor in the information that's given, in the research that's used to create that information, and because of the expertise of the person who writes it. So These are two different types of sources. Scholarly sources are always going to have a higher level of credibility, but that doesn't mean that popular sources aren't good and aren't useful and aren't helpful. It just means that your highest level of credibility will be scholarly sources. For the majority of the academic work that you do, scholarly sources are going to be what you're looking for, regardless of what field you're working in. So in the next video, I'm going to talk to you about how to find good sources.